The massive crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, beings from across the galaxy gathered in a chamber so vast that clouds formed near its ceiling. This was the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in known space made decisions that affected billions of lives. Admiral Keth stood at the center of the chamber. His four muscular arms moved as he spoke, each gesture precise and commanding. The Valerian Empire had ruled 3 star systems for over 2,000 years, and Keth had led their fleets to victory in dozens of wars. His blue-scaled skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of countless victories. "Fellow council members," Keth began, his words translated instantly into hundreds of languages. "We face a new threat. A species that calls itself human has been expanding beyond the borders we set for them 20 years ago." Holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing star maps with red dots marking human colonies. The dots had been spreading outward from a small yellow star called Sol, reaching into territories that other species had claimed long before humans ever left their home planet. "They were supposed to stay in their own system," growled General Torix from his section of the chamber. The reptilian warrior's scales shifted from green to dark red, a sign of anger among his people. The Drakmor had conquered 12 worlds through strength and honor in battle. They respected only those who could defeat them in fair combat. "When we first discovered them, they seemed harmless," continued Admiral Keth. "They had barely reached their own moon. We thought they would stay on their single world for centuries like most species do. Instead, they have built ships and spread to 17 different star systems in just 2 decades. The Ethereal Collective's representative, a being of pure energy called the Illuminated One, pulsed with different colors as it communicated through light patterns. Its thoughts were translated for the other species. These humans show no respect for established territorial boundaries. They claim worlds that have been marked as expansion zones for species far older than themselves. High above the main floor, in a small observation deck, 3 humans watched the proceedings through a thick transparent wall. The human diplomatic vessel Harmony had been granted permission to observe, but not to participate in the debate. The humans were not members of the Galactic Council, and after today they might never get the chance to become members. Yul was the youngest human ever chosen as an ambassador to alien species. At 32, he had spent 8 years learning alien languages, customs, and ways of thinking. His calm face showed no emotion as he watched the most powerful beings in the galaxy discuss his species like they were discussing pest control. "They have been planning this for months," whispered Dr. Hanna beside him. She was a xenobiologist who had studied these species longer than anyone else in human space. Her specialty was understanding how alien minds worked, and what she saw in the council chamber worried her deeply. The 3rd human on the observation deck was Captain Yunha, the Harmony's commanding officer. Her military training made her focus on practical matters rather than politics. She was counting the number of species represented in the chamber and calculating their combined military strength. The numbers were not encouraging for humanity. "Look at how they are positioned," Captain Yunha said quietly. "The warrior species are all grouped together. The Drakmor, the Cathari swarms, the Valerian Empire, they have been coordinating their military responses." Down in the main chamber, Admiral Keth activated another holographic display. This one showed human colony ships, slow-moving vessels packed with families and equipment needed to build new settlements. To human eyes, these ships represented hope and the dream of new homes among the stars. To the Galactic Council, they represented invasion forces. "Each human colony ship carries 10,000 individuals," Admiral Keth explained. "They do not ask permission before landing on worlds. They simply arrive and begin building cities. When contacted by the rightful claimants to these worlds, they refuse to leave." This was not entirely accurate, and Yul knew it. Humans had tried to contact other species before establishing colonies, but their messages had been ignored or dismissed. The Galactic Council had never established clear procedures for new species to request territory. Humans had been forced to expand on their own, following the same pattern that every other successful species had used throughout galactic history. Commander Vex of the Keth-Hari spoke next. His species moved and thought like a hive mind, with millions of individual Keth-Hari acting as one organism. When Vex spoke, he spoke for all of them. The humans have established mining operations on asteroids that belong to our expansion zone, Vex said, his insect-like voice clicking and buzzing. They extract resources without payment or permission. Their behavior shows they have no respect for galactic law. Again, this was misleading. The asteroids in question were in empty space, far from any inhabited worlds, and no Keth-Hari had ever shown any interest in them until humans began mining operations. But Yule understood that facts mattered less than perception in galactic politics. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to complain about human expansion. The Zenth hegemony claimed that human terraforming activities were disrupting the natural evolution of worlds they had selected for future colonization. The Luminos accused humans of interfering with energy fields that they considered sacred. Finally, Admiral Keth called for silence and presented the Council's ultimatum. The Galactic Council has decided, he announced. The species known as humans will have 7 standard days to evacuate all colonies beyond their original star system. If they refuse, the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance will remove them by force. A murmur of approval ran through the chamber. Many of the assembled beings had been hoping for exactly this outcome. The humans were newcomers who had not earned their place among the stars through conquest or ancient birthright. It was time to put them back where they belonged. Yule stood up in the observation deck. His movement caught the attention of many council members, who turned to look at the humans for the first time during the session. Admiral Keth gestured for the chamber's communication system to allow the human ambassador to speak. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Yule began, his voice steady and clear. We came to the stars in peace. We sought only to build homes for our children and to learn from the wisdom of older species. We have harmed no one and taken nothing that was not empty space and lifeless worlds. The chamber grew quiet. Many species had expected humans to beg for mercy or offer tribute in exchange for permission to keep their colonies. Instead, the young human ambassador spoke with quiet dignity. We understand that our expansion has concerned some members of this council, Yule continued. We are willing to discuss boundaries and compensation. We are willing to share the resources we have found and the technologies we have developed. What we are not willing to do is abandon our people to satisfy fears based on misunderstanding. Admiral Keth's forearms crossed over his chest, a gesture of dismissal among his people. The decision has been made, human. 7 days. Yule nodded once, then turned to leave with his companions. As they walked toward the exit, Dr. Hana whispered urgently in his ear. They are not interested in negotiation, she said. Every species in that chamber sees us as a threat to their future expansion. They want us gone, and they believe we will. Be easy to remove. Captain Una was already thinking about the military implications. 7 days to get word to 17 colonies and evacuate 10,000 people from each one. Even if we wanted to comply, it would be impossible. As their shuttle departed Nexus Prime, Yule looked back at the crystal towers one last time. He had come here hoping to find a place for humanity among the stars, through diplomacy and mutual understanding. Instead, he had discovered that the galaxy's older species saw humans as nothing more than an infestation to be eliminated. The message he would send back to Earth was simple. Humanity was about to face the combined military might of the most powerful civilizations in galactic history. And unlike every other species that had been given similar ultimatums throughout galactic history, humans were not going to simply surrender and fade away into extinction. The war that was about to begin would teach the Galactic Council something they had never learned before. Humans were different from every other species they had ever encountered, and that difference was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The news of humanity's defiance spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On communication networks that connected thousands of worlds, the message was the same. The humans had refused to surrender. For the first time in galactic history, A species given an ultimatum by the Council had chosen to fight rather than accept exile or extinction. On the war world of Drakmor, General Torix stood before his greatest warriors in the Hall of Victories. The massive chamber was carved from black volcanic rock, and the walls were covered with the weapons and armor of enemies defeated in honorable combat over 3,000 years of Drakmor history. Torix himself was a giant among his people, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that had turned from bright green to battle-scarred gray over decades of warfare. "My warriors," Torix began, his voice echoing through the hall like distant thunder. "We have been given a gift. For too long we have fought only weak enemies who surrendered before we could test our true strength. These humans dare to stand against the combined might of 17 species. They will provide us with the glorious battle we have been waiting for." The assembled Drakmor warriors roared their approval. Their scales shifted to bright red, the color of excitement and bloodlust. Each warrior present had been born and trained for combat. They knew no other purpose in life except to prove their strength against worthy opponents. "What weapons do these humans possess?" asked Commander Yeth, Torix's most trusted lieutenant. "What ships do they fly? What tactics do they use?" Torix activated a holographic display showing human vessels captured by long-range sensors. The ships looked crude compared to Drakmor warships. They appeared to be built from simple metal plates welded together, with chemical rocket engines that seemed primitive compared to the quantum drives used by advanced species. "They fly ships made of iron and steel," Torix laughed, his fangs gleaming. "They use chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. Their weapons are so primitive that our shields will not even register their attacks. This will not be a battle. It will be a demonstration of superiority." But across the galaxy, on the energy fields of the luminous home dimension, the illuminated one was not so confident. The being of pure thought had been studying human communication intercepts for days, trying to understand how the human mind worked. What it found disturbed it deeply. Most species thought in predictable patterns. The Drakmor thought about honor and combat. The Valerians thought about order and control. The Keithari shared thoughts through their hive mind, creating perfect coordination. But human thoughts were chaotic, jumping from idea to idea in ways that seemed random and illogical. "Their minds are like storms," the illuminated one reported to its fellow energy beings. "When we attempt to read their thoughts or predict their actions, we find only confusion. They think about many different things at the same time. They change their plans constantly. They appear to have no central organizing principle. This should have been a weakness, but the illuminated one suspected it might be something else entirely. A species that could not be predicted might be very difficult to defeat, even if their technology was inferior." Meanwhile, in the bioship construction yards orbiting the Zenth homeworld, massive living vessels were being awakened from their growth cycles. These ships were not built but grown, created from modified organisms that could repair themselves, adapt to new situations, and consume enemy vessels for nutrients. Hive Mother Zextar communicated with her bioships through chemical signals that traveled through their nervous systems. The largest ship, a creature the size of a small moon called the Devourer, had been dormant for 50 years. It took tremendous resources to keep such a creature alive, so it was only awakened for the most important battles. "The humans will provide excellent nutrients," Zextar pulsed to her ship creatures. "Their vessels contain metals and minerals that will make you grow stronger. Their crew will feed your hunger for weeks." The bioships responded with waves of anticipation, their living hulls shifting colors as they prepared for the feast ahead. They had consumed the fleets of 6 different species over the centuries, and each victory had made them larger and more powerful. On Earth, in the Strategic Command Center buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Minho stared at displays showing the largest military buildup in galactic history. Every few hours, new alien fleets appeared at the edge of human sensor range, taking positions around human colonies like predators surrounding prey. "Final count, Admiral," reported Captain Yunha from her position at the main tactical display. 43,000 enemy vessels from 17 different species. They are coordinating their approach vectors to hit all our colonies simultaneously. Admiral Minho was a veteran of Earth's last global war, fought 30 years earlier over water rights and climate refugees. He had been a young naval officer then, commanding a single destroyer. Now he commanded humanity's entire space fleet, 300 ships of various sizes, most of them converted cargo vessels and mining platforms. The odds were not encouraging, but Admiral Minho had learned something during Earth's final war that the aliens apparently had not. Modern warfare was not about honor or superior technology. It was about logistics, adaptation, and the willingness to use whatever worked, regardless of whether it was fair or sporting. "Send a message to all colony commanders," Admiral Minho ordered. "Operation Forge begins immediately. Every civilian facility is now a military asset. Every piece of industrial equipment is now a weapon. Every colonist is now a soldier." Dr. Hana worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, which had been converted to a mobile research station. She had been studying the alien species for years, but now she needed to find their weaknesses quickly. The aliens had centuries of experience fighting each other, but they had no experience fighting humans. "Captain Yunha," she called over the communication system, "I need you to see this. The alien species all have one thing in common. They have never fought an enemy that uses industrial chemicals as weapons." Captain Yunha joined Dr. Hana in the laboratory, where holographic displays showed detailed biological data about each alien species. The information painted an interesting picture. "The Drakmor have extremely sensitive respiratory systems," Dr. Hana explained. "Their honor-based culture means they have never had to deal with poison gas or chemical attacks. The Luminos are energy beings, but they require specific quantum field frequencies to maintain coherence. Disrupt those frequencies, and they simply dissipate." "What about the bioships?" Captain Yunha asked. "That is the most interesting discovery," Dr. Hana said with excitement. "The Zenth bioships are living organisms. They can be poisoned, infected with diseases, or killed with the right toxins, and we happen to have industrial facilities throughout human space that produce exactly the chemicals we need." As reports came in from human colonies, a pattern began to emerge. The aliens were positioning their fleets for traditional space battles, expecting humans to meet them in formation like honorable warriors. But the humans were not preparing for traditional battles at all. On New Busan, the largest human colony outside the Sol system, civilian engineer Hyuk supervised the conversion of mining equipment into weapons of war. The massive fusion drills, used for asteroid mining, were being repositioned as orbital defense platforms. The industrial lasers used for metal cutting were being upgraded with military targeting systems. "These aliens think like warriors," Hyuk told his team of engineers and miners. "They expect us to fight like warriors, but we are not warriors. We are problem solvers. And right now, our problem is how to stop the largest invasion fleet in galactic history with mining equipment and industrial chemicals." The solution, Hyuk realized, was not to fight the aliens on their terms. Humans would fight on human terms, using human methods, with human ingenuity. If the aliens wanted a war, they would get one. But it would not be the kind of war they expected or understood. Across 17 star systems, human colonies began their preparations. In asteroid mining facilities, kinetic accelerators designed to move ore were recalibrated to launch projectiles at enemy ships. In agricultural settlements, chemical fertilizers were being converted to explosives. In industrial zones, manufacturing, plants switched from producing consumer goods to producing weapons that no alien species had ever encountered before. The aliens had superior numbers, advanced technology, and centuries of military experience. But they were about to learn that humans had something they had never encountered: the ability to turn anything into a weapon when survival was at stake. Admiral Minho stood at the main display in Strategic Command, watching as alien fleets moved into final attack positions around human colonies. In 6 hours, the largest battle in galactic history would begin. And for the first time since receiving the Council's ultimatum, Admiral Minho allowed himself to smile. The aliens expected to fight warriors. Instead, they were about to fight engineers, miners, farmers, and factory workers who had been given 7 days to figure out how to wage war with whatever tools they had available. It was going to be educational. The first alien ships arrived at New Busan Colony exactly 7 days after the Galactic Council's ultimatum expired. General Torix led the assault with 1,000 Drakmor warships, their hulls gleaming black against the stars. Behind them came the silver swarms of the Kethari and the massive bioships of the Zenth hegemony, creatures so large they cast shadows on the colony's 3 moons. "Begin the demonstration," General Torix commanded from his flagship Conquest. His tactical display showed 30 human vessels forming a defensive line around the colony. The numbers made him laugh. 30 ships against 1,000. Even with inferior warriors, the humans should have fielded at least 300 ships to make this battle interesting. "General," reported his weapons officer, "the human ships appear to be converted cargo vessels. We are detecting civilian markings and industrial equipment modifications. They do not appear to be proper warships at all." This puzzled Torix. Where were the human military vessels? Where were their warriors? Had they truly sent civilian ships to fight the greatest armada in galactic history? The lead human ship, a converted mining vessel called Taekwondo, moved forward to engage Torix's advanced scouts. The alien commanders watched with curiosity as the primitive human ship approached. Their formation. They expected to see energy weapons charging or missile launchers preparing to fire. Instead, the Taekwondo launched something completely unexpected. A simple iron rod, 2 meters long and 10 centimeters wide, accelerated by magnetic coils to nearly 20% of light speed. The projectile had no guidance system, no explosive warhead, no sophisticated technology at all. It was just a piece of metal moving very, very fast. The rod struck the Drakmor scout ship Blade of Honor with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The kinetic energy converted instantly to heat and shrapnel, tearing through the alien vessel's shields and armor like they were made of paper. The scout ship exploded in a brilliant flash, its wreckage spreading across several kilometers of space. "Impossible," General Torix snarled, his scales shifting to dark red. "Their weapons are primitive chemical rockets. How did they penetrate our quantum shields?" His science officer, a younger Drakmor named Keth, studied the sensor readings. With growing confusion, "General, I do not understand this. The projectile contained no energy signature that our shields could detect. It was just metal, moving at high velocity." Commander Vex of the Kethari was equally confused. His swarm ships moved in perfect formation, their shared consciousness allowing them to coordinate attacks with precision no individual species could match. But as they approached the human defensive line, more iron rods began flying toward them at impossible speeds. The Kethari had developed their tactics fighting enemies with energy weapons and guided missiles. Their evasion patterns were designed to avoid sophisticated targeting systems and complex weapon trajectories. But the human kinetic projectiles flew in straight lines with no guidance at all, and the Kethari formation flew directly into them. 12 swarm ships died in the first volley, their lightweight hulls unable to withstand the massive kinetic impacts. The surviving Kethari tried to adapt their formation, but they had no experience fighting an enemy whose weapons could not be detected until the moment of impact. "This is not how warfare is conducted," Commander Vex reported to the other alien commanders. "There is no skill in launching simple projectiles. There is no honor in weapons that cannot be detected or countered. They are fighting like barbarians, but the humans were just getting started." On New Busan's surface, Engineer Hyok watched the space battle through his command center's tactical displays while coordinating the ground defense. He had converted the colony's mining lasers into orbital defense weapons, but he knew the real test would come when alien troops landed on the surface. The first Drakmor dropships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their heat shields glowing red as they approached the landing zones, near New Busan's main settlement. General Torix had selected these locations carefully, choosing open areas where his warriors could deploy in proper battle formation and advance with honor toward the human defensive positions. As the dropships touched down and began disgorging Drakmor warriors, Hyok activated the mining lasers. The industrial cutting beams designed to slice through solid rock and metal ore focused on the alien dropships with devastating precision. The Drakmor had expected to face energy weapons, designed for combat, weapons their personal shields could deflect or absorb. Instead, they found themselves targeted by sustained infrared radiation that their shields had never been designed to handle. The first wave of Drakmor warriors died before they could even leave their landing craft. Their armor, designed to protect against plasma bolts and particle beams, offered no protection against industrial lasers that operated on completely different principles. "Cowards," General Torix roared as he watched his warriors fall. "They use workers' tools instead of proper weapons. They have no honor." But HFY was not thinking about honor. He was thinking about mathematics. Each mining laser could cut through 3 meters of solid rock per minute. A Drakmor warrior, regardless of his training or courage, was mostly water and organic compounds. The math was simple and brutal. The second wave of dropships tried to land in different locations, hoping to avoid the mining lasers. But HFY had anticipated this. The entire surface of New Busan had been turned into a weapon. Chemical plants that normally produced fertilizer for the colony's agricultural domes began releasing clouds of industrial toxins into the atmosphere. The Drakmor had sensitive respiratory systems evolved for their homeworld's clean air. The chemical clouds that barely bothered human colonists wearing simple breathing masks were lethal to the alien invaders. In space, the battle was turning into a disaster for the alien fleet. Captain Yuna led a squadron of converted human fighters against the luminous energy beings, expecting to face their consciousness-disrupting psychic attacks. The aliens had used these weapons to great effect against other species, reaching into their minds to cause confusion and panic. But when the Illuminated One attempted to disrupt human consciousness, something unexpected happened. Instead of the organized, hierarchical thought patterns the Luminos were used to encountering, they found minds that were chaotic, unpredictable, and constantly changing focus. "We cannot grasp them," the Illuminated One reported to its subordinates. "Their thoughts move in directions we cannot predict. When we attempt to impose order on their minds, they simply think about something else entirely." Human consciousness, evolved through millions of years of problem-solving and adaptation, proved remarkably resistant to alien psychic manipulation. The Luminos found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand or control. Meanwhile, the Zenth bioships faced their own unexpected challenge. The massive living vessels, designed to consume enemy ships and grow stronger, attempted to engulf and digest several human craft. But the humans had coated their hulls with industrial chemicals that proved toxic to the bioship's living tissue. Dr. Hana watched from the Harmony as a Zenth bioship tried to consume the human destroyer's soul, only to recoil in apparent pain as the industrial toxins began killing its organic hull. The creature that had devoured dozens of enemy fleets throughout galactic history found itself poisoned by simple chemical compounds that humans used in everyday manufacturing. "They have never fought a species that uses industrial chemicals as weapons," Dr. Hana reported to Admiral Minho. "Their biology cannot handle our manufacturing byproducts. We are accidentally poisoning them with substances we consider harmless." Xiao. The first day of battle ended. The alien commanders found themselves facing a reality they had never encountered before. Their superior numbers and advanced technology were being countered by human tactics that made no sense according to established rules of warfare. General Torix had lost 300 ships and 5,000 warriors to an enemy that should have been crushed in the first hour of combat. Commander Vex's perfectly coordinated swarms were being destroyed by weapons they could not detect or predict. The Illuminated One's psychic abilities were useless against minds that refused to be controlled. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. As alien commanders compared their battle reports, they realized that the humans were not just using unconventional weapons. They were learning and adapting in real time, changing their tactics based on alien responses with a speed that seemed impossible. The humans were not fighting like any species the galaxy had ever encountered. They were fighting like engineers presented with a technical problem, testing different solutions until they found what worked, then improving on those solutions with each exchange. For the first time in galactic history, the greatest military alliance ever assembled was being outfought by a species using mining equipment and industrial chemicals. And this was only the beginning. 3 weeks into the siege of New Busan, the alien commanders were forced to admit something they had never experienced before. They were losing a war to a technologically inferior enemy. General Torix stood in his damaged flagship, studying battle reports that made no logical sense according to everything he had been taught about warfare. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his tactical officer. 837 vessels destroyed, General. Another 200 severely damaged and unable to fight. The humans have lost only 43 ships. Torix's claws scraped against the metal console. In 3 weeks of fighting, his massive fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its original strength, while the human defenders seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. Every time the aliens adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their approach entirely. The breaking point came when Captain Yunhe led a boarding party onto the crippled Valerian cruiser, Eternal Glory. The alien ship had been disabled by a human electromagnetic pulse weapon, a modified industrial welding unit that overloaded the cruiser's sophisticated computer systems. "Spread out and secure the bridge," Captain Yuna ordered her team as they moved through the alien vessel's corridors. What they found amazed them. The Valerian ship had no internal security systems at all. "Captain," reported Sergeant June Ao, former asteroid miner turned soldier, "these ships are designed for long-range combat only. They have no preparation for boarding actions or close-quarters fighting." This discovery changed everything. The aliens had built their entire military philosophy around the idea that battles would be fought at extreme distances with energy weapons. They had no experience defending against enemies who might actually board their ships and fight hand-to-hand. Captain, Huna realized that every alien vessel was vulnerable to human boarding tactics. While the aliens possessed superior shields and weapons, their ships were helpless once human soldiers got inside them. "Send this information to Admiral Minho immediately," she ordered. "Every human ship should be equipped for boarding actions. We can take their vessels intact and use them against their own fleets." On New Busan's surface, the ground war had become a nightmare for the alien invaders. Engineer Hyok had turned the entire colony into a maze of industrial hazards and chemical weapons. The Drakmor warriors, trained for honorable combat on open battlefields, found themselves trapped in an environment that seemed designed to kill them in the most undignified ways possible. "This is not warfare," complained Commander Yeth as his unit tried to advance through New Busan's industrial sector. "These humans use factory equipment as weapons. They poison the air we breathe. They show no honor in battle." But Hyok was not interested in honor. He was interested in protecting his people. When Drakmor drop troops tried to establish a forward base near the mining facility, he activated the automated ore processing systems. Massive machinery designed to crush asteroids began operating at full capacity, creating a zone of moving metal and crushing force that no biological creature could survive. The Drakmor had trained for thousands of years to fight other warriors in single combat. They had no experience dealing with an enemy who turned entire industrial complexes into weapons systems. "We must withdraw and reassess our strategy," Commander Yeth reported to General Torix. "The humans do not fight like warriors. They fight like the environment itself has turned against us." In space, Dr. Hana had made another crucial discovery about alien biology. She had been studying prisoners captured during boarding actions, and what she found gave humanity an even greater advantage. "Admiral Minho," she reported during a secure communication to Earth Command, "every alien species we have examined shows the same weakness. They have never developed immunity to the industrial chemicals we use in everyday manufacturing." "Explain," Admiral Minho replied. "Their homeworlds are pristine environments with carefully controlled atmospheres. They have never been exposed to the kind of chemical pollution that humans have lived with for centuries. What we consider mild industrial byproducts are extremely toxic to alien biology." This discovery led to the development of new human tactics. Every human ship began venting industrial waste into space during combat, creating clouds of chemical compounds that were harmless to human crews, but deadly to alien boarding parties. The aliens found themselves unable to capture human vessels because the internal atmosphere was toxic to them. Commander Vex of the Kethari faced his own crisis. His swarm tactics, refined over centuries of warfare, were proving useless against human unpredictability. The Keithari moved in perfect coordination, their shared consciousness allowing them to function as a single organism. But this strength had become a weakness when fighting humans. Their ships do not move in formation, Vex reported to the other alien commanders. They operate independently, making individual decisions that we cannot predict or counter. When we target one vessel, the others attack from directions we did not anticipate. Human fighter pilots, trained to operate as individuals rather than swarm components, were achieving impossible victory ratios against Keithari forces. Each human pilot made independent tactical decisions, creating a chaotic battle environment that the hive-minded aliens could not comprehend or counter. The Zenth bioships faced an even worse fate. Hive Mother Zextar watched in horror as her greatest creation, the moon-sized devourer, writhed in agony after attempting to consume a human cargo vessel. The bioship had expected to absorb the enemy craft and add its materials to its own mass, but instead found itself poisoned by industrial chemicals that were killing its living tissue. The humans coat their ships with toxins, Zextar reported. Our bioships cannot consume their vessels without poisoning themselves. The very act of victory becomes defeat. But the most devastating blow to alien morale came when the Illuminated one attempted a massive psychic assault on the human fleet. The energy being gathered its full power and projected waves of consciousness-disrupting force toward the human vessels, an attack that should have left the enemy crews helpless and confused. Instead, the humans seemed barely affected. They continued their attacks with the same chaotic unpredictability that had been frustrating alien commanders for weeks. Their minds are like storms, the Illuminated One reported in defeat. We cannot impose order on chaos. We cannot predict random thoughts. We cannot control minds that change direction every few seconds. Human consciousness, evolved through millions of years of adapting to changing environments and solving complex problems, proved to be naturally resistant to psychic manipulation. The aliens had based their mental attacks on the assumption that all intelligent species thought in logical, hierarchical patterns. Humans did not. As the fourth week of battle began, Admiral Minho prepared to launch Operation Homecoming. The defensive phase of the war had proven that humans could hold their ground against superior alien forces. Now it was time to carry the fight to the enemy. All ships prepare for offensive operations, Admiral Minho commanded from his flagship, the converted mining vessel Sol Express. We have learned how to fight them. Now we teach them how humans wage war. The plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic military history. Instead of continuing to defend human colonies, the human fleet would split into 17 separate strike forces and attack every alien homeworld simultaneously. Sir, Captain Yunha reported from her new command, a captured Valerian cruiser, renamed Independence. The alien fleets are still massive compared to our forces. Are we certain this strategy will succeed? Admiral Minho smiled grimly as he studied the tactical displays. The aliens still outnumbered human forces by more than 50 to 1. But numbers had proven less important than adaptability and innovation. Captain, we have spent 4 weeks learning how they fight. They still do not understand how we fight. That advantage is worth more than superior numbers or advanced technology. Engineer Hayek, now promoted to Ground Forces Commander, prepared, his own surprise for the alien invaders still trapped in Nubusan's industrial zones. Using the colony's automated manufacturing systems, he had been producing weapons that no alien species had ever encountered. Devices specifically designed to exploit the biological weaknesses Dr. Hana had discovered. All units begin final phase operations, Hayek commanded. Show them what happens when engineers decide to wage war. Across human space, the pattern was the same. Mining lasers became ship-killing weapons. Chemical plants became poison gas generators. Manufacturing facilities became weapon production centers. Cargo haulers became assault vessels. Every piece of human civilization had been transformed into an instrument of war. The aliens had superior technology, greater numbers, and thousands of years of military tradition. But they had never fought an enemy that could turn anything into a weapon, adapt to any situation, and learn from every mistake. They were about to discover that when humans were pushed to fight, they did not fight like warriors seeking honor or glory. They fought like problem solvers determined to survive, and they would use whatever tools were available to ensure that survival. The siege of New Busan was ending, but the real war was just beginning. 2 months after the siege of New Busan began, Admiral Minho launched the most ambitious military operation in human history. Operation Homecoming would take the war directly to the alien worlds, using tactics and weapons that no galactic species had ever encountered before. The human counterattack began with a deception that confused every alien commander. Instead of massing their remaining ships for a single decisive battle, the humans split their fleet into 17 small groups and disappeared from all known sensor networks. Where did they go? General Torix demanded, as his tactical displays showed empty space where the human fleet had been moments before. Ships cannot simply vanish. Our sensors should be able to detect them anywhere in this star system. His science officer Keth studied the readings with growing confusion. General, I believe they have shut down all their power systems and are drifting in space like debris. But that should leave them helpless and unable to maneuver. What the aliens did not understand was that human ships had been designed for long-duration missions with minimal life support. Human crews could survive for weeks in powered-down vessels, something that was impossible for most alien species who required constant environmental control systems. The first sign of the human counterattack came 3 days later, when Captain Yuna's strike force appeared in the Drakmor home system without warning. The aliens had left only a small garrison to defend their homeworld, believing that the humans were still trapped at New Busan fighting for their survival. All ships, begin. Bombardment Protocol 7, Captain Yuna commanded from the Bridge of Independence. Target industrial facilities and communication networks. Avoid civilian population centers. The human attack was unlike anything the Drakmor had ever experienced. Instead of glorious ship-to-ship combat, the humans launched thousands of small projectiles at Drakmor's orbital installations. Each projectile was a simple iron rod accelerated to extreme velocity, but together, they created a devastating bombardment that crippled the planet's ability to communicate with its military forces. This is not how honorable species conduct warfare, protested Planetary Commander Zeth as his communication arrays were destroyed one by one. They attack our infrastructure instead of facing our warriors in battle. But Captain Yunha was not interested in honor. She was interested in results. By destroying communication networks, she had isolated the Drakmor homeworld from the rest of their military forces. The garrison ships that tried to respond to the attack found themselves cut off from coordination and support. On the planet's surface, the humans employed their most devastating weapon, industrial chemistry. Dr. Hana had discovered that Drakmor respiratory systems were extremely sensitive to chemical compounds that humans considered harmless. Using simple atmospheric processors, the human strike force began releasing industrial chemicals into the planet's air supply. The atmosphere is becoming toxic, reported Drakmor medical officers. Our population must evacuate to underground shelters immediately. Within hours, the entire Drakmor homeworld was paralyzed. The warrior species that had conquered 12 worlds through strength and honor found themselves hiding in bunkers while the humans systematically dismantled their civilization from orbit. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as other human strike forces reached their targets. Dr. Hana led a team to the Luminos home dimension, where the energy beings existed as patterns of conscious, electromagnetic radiation. Using modified radio transmitters, she began broadcasting interference patterns that disrupted the quantum fields the Luminos needed to maintain their coherent thoughts. "We are dissolving," the illuminated one transmitted desperately as its consciousness began to fragment. "They are using simple electromagnetic noise to destroy our very existence." The Luminos had evolved as beings of pure energy, but this meant they were vulnerable to any form of electromagnetic interference. Human radio technology, primitive by galactic standards, was perfectly suited to disrupting their life processes. "Increase the interference frequency," Dr. Hana ordered her technicians. "According to my calculations, random electromagnetic noise should make it impossible for them to maintain organized thought patterns. The most powerful psychic species in galactic history found themselves defeated by equipment that humans used for basic communication systems. Engineer Hyok commanded the strike force sent to attack the Kethari homeworld. The hive-minded insect species had built their entire civilization around perfect coordination and shared consciousness. Hyok realized that this strength was also their greatest weakness. Deploy chaos generators at these coordinates, he ordered, indicating positions around the planet's major population centers. The chaos generators were simple devices that broadcast random electromagnetic signals across the frequency ranges the Kethari used for hive communication. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Kethari, who had functioned as a single, coordinated organism for thousands of years, suddenly found themselves unable to communicate with each other. Individual Kethari, cut off from the hive mind, became confused and disoriented. "We cannot hear the song of unity," Commander Vex transmitted frantically. "Our people are becoming individuals. They do not know how to function without the hive connection." Within days, Kethari civilization collapsed as billions of individuals found themselves unable to coordinate even basic activities without their shared consciousness. The species that had perfected swarm tactics through hive coordination was defeated by simple radio interference. The Zenth bioships faced a more direct assault. Admiral Minho personally led the attack on their breeding worlds, where the massive living vessels were grown in orbital biofarms. Instead of fighting the creatures directly, the human fleet released clouds of industrial toxins that poisoned the bioships while they were still developing. "The humans are killing our children before they are born," Hive Mother Zexitar reported in despair. "They poison our breeding pools with chemicals that turn our own biology against us." The bioships that had consumed countless enemy fleets found themselves dying from exposure to compounds that humans used in everyday manufacturing. The Zenth, who had created living weapons by carefully controlling biological processes, discovered that those same processes could be disrupted by simple chemical pollution. But the most devastating attack was saved for the Valerian Empire, the species that had initiated the war against humanity. Admiral Minho took personal command of this assault, leading the human fleet to Valerian Prime and captured alien vessels that the defenders did not recognize as threats until it was too late. "Begin boarding actions on all orbital platforms," Admiral Minho commanded. "Remember, their ships have no internal defenses. Once we get inside, they cannot stop us." Human boarding parties equipped with simple chemical weapons that were toxic to Valerian biology captured the Empire's orbital defense stations within hours. The Valerians, who had designed their military for long-range space combat, had no experience defending against close-quarters fighting. Admiral Keth watched helplessly as his fleet was systematically captured by human boarding parties. Every time his ships tried to self-destruct to prevent capture, they found that the humans had already disabled their command systems. "How are they taking control of our vessels so quickly?" Keth demanded. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they appear to have studied our ship designs during previous battles. They know exactly where to place their electromagnetic weapons to disable our systems without destroying the ships." The humans were not just winning battles. They were capturing intact alien technology and using it to equip their own forces. Every victory made them stronger while simultaneously weakening their enemies. As reports arrived from across the galaxy, the scope of the human counterattack became clear. 17 alien homeworlds were under assault simultaneously. Communication networks were down. Industrial facilities were destroyed. Military coordination was impossible. But the most shocking discovery came when alien commanders tried to coordinate a response to the human attacks. They found that their species could not work together effectively when separated from their home support systems. "We have been fighting as separate species," General Torix realized as he tried to establish contact with other alien commanders. "The humans coordinate better than we do, even though they have no hive mind or central command structure." Human military doctrine, developed through centuries of warfare on Earth, emphasized flexibility and independent operation. Human commanders could adapt to changing situations and coordinate with each other without constant communication with central authority. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, had never developed such capabilities. All alien forces attempt to regroup at Nexus Prime, Admiral Keth transmitted across the emergency networks. We must coordinate our remaining strength for a final counterattack. But it was too late. The human strategy had been perfectly executed. By attacking all alien homeworlds simultaneously, they had forced the enemy to choose between defending their homes and continuing their assault on human colonies. The aliens chose to defend their homes, and in doing so, they abandoned their only chance of defeating humanity through superior numbers. The great galactic armada that had seen 6 months after the Galactic Council's ultimatum, the war that was supposed to demonstrate humanity's weakness had instead proven their terrifying strength. The final confrontation took place not in space, but in the ruins of the Crystal Towers on Nexus Prime, where the surviving alien leaders had gathered for one last desperate attempt to coordinate their shattered forces. General Torix stood in the damaged council chamber, his scales now a dull gray color that indicated defeat among his people. Around him sat the remnants of the greatest military alliance in galactic history. Commander Vex had arrived without his usual swarm escorts, the Kethari hive mind so disrupted that individual members could barely function. The Illuminated one flickered weakly, its consciousness barely coherent after months of electromagnetic interference. "How many ships do we have left?" Torix asked the assembled commanders. "My fleet has been reduced to 43 vessels," Admiral Keith reported. "Most of my crews have been captured or killed. The humans have taken control of our orbital installations and are using our own technology against us." Commander Vex spoke with difficulty, his voice lacking the usual coordination of the hive mind. "The swarms are scattered, without unified communication. Individual Kethari cannot coordinate attacks. We have perhaps 200 ships remaining, but they operate as separate units." The numbers told a story of complete military collapse. The Galactic Alliance that had begun the war with over 40,000 vessels now possessed fewer than 1,000 functional ships. Meanwhile, human forces had grown stronger with each victory, capturing alien technology and converting it for their own use. But the most devastating reports came from the homeworlds themselves. "Drakmor is uninhabitable," General Torix admitted with shame. "The humans have poisoned our atmosphere with industrial chemicals. Our population has been evacuated to underground shelters, but we cannot survive indefinitely without access to the surface." Hive Mother Zextar's bioship pulsed with sickness as she reported her species' condition. "The breeding pools are contaminated. The humans introduced toxins that killed our developing ships while they were still growing. We cannot produce new biovessels. Our existing fleet dies a little more each day from the poison in their systems." "Doctor." Hana monitored these communications from the human command ship Harmony, which now orbited Nexus Prime with a fleet of captured alien vessels. She had spent months studying the biological weaknesses of each alien species, and the effectiveness of human chemical warfare had exceeded even her most optimistic predictions. "Captain Yunha," she reported, "the alien species are biologically incompatible with industrial environments. Their homeworlds have been rendered uninhabitable by chemical compounds that we consider minor pollutants." Captain Yunha nodded as she studied the tactical displays. "What about their remaining military forces?" "They are trapped in space without viable home bases to return to," Dr. Hana explained. "Their ships require regular resupply from their homeworlds. Without those resources, their fleets will be unable to maintain operations within weeks." On the surface of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Yule walked through the abandoned diplomatic quarters where the war had begun. The crystal towers that once housed representatives from across the galaxy now stood mostly empty, their alien occupants evacuated or dead. Engineer Hyok accompanied him, marveling at the alien architecture while simultaneously analyzing it for potential weaknesses. The habits of an engineer were difficult to abandon even in victory. "It is hard to believe it has only been 6 months, Yule said as they observed the damage to the once magnificent capital of galactic civilization. "When we first came here, I thought we could find a place for humanity among these species through diplomacy and cooperation." "They never gave us that chance," Hyok replied. "They saw us as a threat to be eliminated, not as potential allies." to be welcomed. The truth was more complex than either species had initially understood. The galactic powers had dominated space for millennia by following established patterns of warfare and conquest. They expected new species to conform to these patterns, to fight according to rules that had been refined over thousands of years of conflict. Humanity had no knowledge of these rules, and no intention of following them. Admiral Minho arrived on Nexus Prime to personally deliver humanity's final ultimatum to the remaining alien leaders. Unlike the Galactic Council's arrogant demands months earlier, the human terms were practical and straightforward. Honored representatives, Admiral Minho addressed the alien survivors in the damaged council chamber. The war you initiated is over. Humanity offers the following terms for peace. The aliens listened in silence as the human admiral outlined conditions that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Each alien species would retain sovereignty over their original homeworld, but under human oversight to ensure they did not threaten other species. All territorial claims beyond their home systems would be surrendered to humanity. Military forces would be reduced to levels sufficient only for local defense. This is unconditional surrender, General Torix protested weakly. You are demanding that we abandon everything our species have built over thousands of years. Admiral Minho's expression remained calm and professional. General, your species initiated this conflict with the intention of committing genocide against humanity. The fact that we are offering you survival at all demonstrates more mercy than you showed us. The truth of this statement silenced the alien protest. The Galactic Council had demanded humanity's complete evacuation from space, with the clear implication that humans who refused would be killed. Now humanity offered the aliens continued existence, albeit under human authority. Captain, HUNA delivered the strategic assessment that made resistance pointless. Your combined fleets have been reduced to less than 800 vessels. Human forces now number over 3,000 ships, most of them captured alien technology operated by human crews. Your homeworlds cannot support your populations without human permission to import resources. Continued resistance will result in the complete extinction of your species. The mathematics of defeat were undeniable, but the psychological impact was even more devastating than the military collapse. How did you defeat us so easily? The illuminated one asked, its weakened consciousness struggling to understand what had happened. We had superior technology, greater numbers, and thousands of years of military experience. You had primitive ships and industrial equipment. Dr. Hana stepped forward to answer. You fought the war you expected to fight using tactics that had served you for millennia. We fought the war we needed to fight, using whatever tools and methods would ensure our survival. That difference decided the outcome. The aliens had approached warfare as a contest of honor and superiority, following established traditions and protocols. Humans had approached it as a problem to be solved, using whatever resources were available. When survival was at stake, humans would use mining lasers as weapons, industrial chemicals as poisons, and manufacturing facilities as military assets. Your species made a fundamental error in judgment, Admiral Minho explained. You assumed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. You believed that industrial equipment could not be as effective as purpose-built weapons. You thought that numerical superiority would overcome tactical innovation. Engineer Hayok added his own perspective from the ground campaigns. You fought like warriors seeking glorious victory. We fought like engineers solving a technical problem. Every piece of equipment, every chemical compound, every manufacturing process became a potential weapon when our survival depended on it. The silence in the council chamber was broken only by the weak pulsing of dying bioships in orbit and the flicker of disrupted energy beings. The greatest military powers in galactic history had been defeated by a species they had considered primitive and weak. Commander Vex spoke with the fractured voice of a hive mind that could no longer maintain unity. What happens to our species now? Will you allow us to survive? That depends on your choices, Admiral Minho replied. Humanity never wanted this war. We came to the stars seeking knowledge and new homes for our people. When you forced us to fight, we fought to win. Now that we have won, We want only to ensure that such a war never happens again. The human terms were harsh, but fair. Each alien species would be relocated to reservation worlds where they could maintain their cultures and populations under human supervision. Their military capabilities would be permanently limited to prevent future aggression. Most importantly, they would be required to contribute their knowledge and technology to benefit all species under human authority. "You are creating an empire," General Torix observed. "We are preventing future genocides," Admiral Minho corrected. "Your galactic council ruled through fear and the threat of extinction. Humanity will rule through practical necessity and mutual benefit." Dr. Hana explained the biological realities that made human dominance inevitable. "Your species cannot survive in the industrial environments that humans consider normal. You require carefully controlled atmospheres and pristine conditions. We can live and work in conditions that would kill you within hours." This biological incompatibility meant that humans could occupy any world or environment in